Make sure you're subscribed to Babs. I can't imagine you're not already, but subscribe, smash the like button, comment any thoughts. You saying, bro, you good?
Yes, bro. All blessed. Appreciate the invite, and let's do it, man.
Minor. You ill? You look under the weather a bit.
Yeah. I've listened, man. I've had a rough few days. So
Well, you should have said something. I would have cancelled it, man. But I
no.
appreciate the
I was
commitment,
out in
man.
it. I was out, so that's probably why. I'm not really ill. I was just, do you know
He
what I
is
mean?
out
Heavy
drinking, is
ones. One of them heavy ones, bro.
it? Too much tequila, man. What you saying, anyways, man? In relation, let's crack straight in. First of all, obviously, it's been a minute since I've spoken to you. Before we touch on Leicester, now with it being February, with February done, and we're waiting on March and playing tomorrow, what have you made of the last month of football between us, our football club?
It's been mad, innit? It's been a bit of a roller coaster, you know. Last
Roller
month at the
coaster,
start
man.
of it, yeah, it was all panic stations, and we lost like what 2 games, draw 1 game against Brentford as well. But I wasn't that panicking because I was like, you know what, we were still doing the right things, especially against Brentford, where you know we drew the game, and yeah, Brentford made some chances, but we kept doing the right things, and especially against Man City as well. In that game, I think we were the better team. We dominated the game, made more chances, and if we didn't make those silly errors, you could have actually won that game. So yeah, I wasn't that worried. So when we beat Aston Villa, I mean it was a last minute one, but listen, I thought it was about time.
What did you touched on it and I completely forgot Man City, because obviously a game like Man City, not to go too far behind, but it's fine margins. And I think, you know, as you kind of said, we've played well this season. I think when you play well, you earn the right for fine margins to kind of go for you. And some majority of the season, we've got away with individual mistakes against a team like Man City. Obviously, the margins for errors are small. I personally think first half we went toe to toe. Second half we kind of let off and they changed their formation. Obviously, we had a couple of mistakes. What do you think went right and wrong against City? If I was to ask you a bit more about it.
A lot went right, but the few things that went wrong, they punished us. And
Mm,
that's what top
mm.
teams do. They're ruthless. I think it's anything, you know. Yeah, this year for the title race, we need to learn from it. But next year, when we're in the Champions League, we have to be the same, because you know you could dominate a game, you can make most chances, you could do everything. But if you
Facts.
give any mistakes, and the dangerous ones that we gave away, like the Tomiyasu one, they're gonna punish you. So I think it was a learning curve for this young team to go. Okay, look, in these big games, we have to be completely on it. We can't make any errors. And to be fair, because they're the youngest team, or the second youngest team in the league, like they'll learn from it.
You're right on that regards, man. So, what did you make of the Leicester game? Because obviously you touched on Aston Villa. I think I speak for you as well when we say it must have been a great game for the neutrals, not quite for us. Superb second half, you know, turned it around and whatnot. Leicester, I think we were perfect, really. The only criticism is that it was only 1-0, but clean sheet, 3 points. I'm a happy man. What did you make of Aston Villa?
Yeah,
Leicester. Apologies.
I was at the game, and do you know what it was I was liking the way the front three was moving. It was like the first game post Jesus that we've seen the front three be able to rotate, and everyone was like,
Interchanging and that,
yeah,
yeah.
that free flowing nature. And yeah, we didn't make that many chances, but I mean, the goal that Trossard scored, like obviously because we were the opposite end of the stadium, you could just see it go top bins, and I was like, whoa.
Done
I was like,
dirty there, man.
this guy, and do you know the fact that we'd be able to sign Trossard and there was no competition for him, a massive competition, and the way he suits his Arsenal team, I mean, he's a proper signing, and that front three I think got me gassed more than anything going into the future. So yeah, the game against Leicester, we were pretty solid in it. Defensively, we gave like what nothing away, and the work rate, the unit, you know, the way the players chase back, especially the counter attack, I think that was amazing. But going forwards, I think we can be a bit more decisive, especially on the left hand side with Xhaka. I think he needs to maybe improve or maybe be replaced for the short term for Fabio Vieira, someone that could kill you in the final third.
What do you make of Granit Xhaka's recent performances? Because again, for me, Xhaka's a quality player for us. He's been good. I do think we need to upgrade in that position. I do think he's had a good season, and we're going to touch on Jorginho, but I think there's parallels. I think Jorginho's playing out of his skin, holding Xhaka to the high standards he's kind of set already this season. I think he's been a bit flat against Leicester. Everyone was good, but I think he's been a bit flat. And as you kind of alluded to, whether it's Fabio Vieira, whether it's Odegaard, if Partey was fit tomorrow, maybe Jorginho would move in. What have you made of Granit Xhaka? And obviously on that, what do you make of the contract news around Xhaka, allegedly?
Look, the first 60, 70, I saw this tweet yesterday. The first 60, 70 minutes, like you could see where Arsenal can improve on him. Like in the final third, he wasn't being lethal. He wasn't being ruthless, whereas Odegaard obviously is. But then in the final like 20 minutes, when Arsenal were kind of trying to see the game out, you could see why he
See
still
why
is
he's
in the
there,
team.
innit?
You can see his defensive experience and reliability, man. That's what Xhaka is. He's reliable. Young players can be inconsistent, but Xhaka in his nearly 30s now. you know where you're going to get for him, and he's going to be reliable. He's going to provide balance. So I think, maybe what it is with Fabio Vieira, who's a lot more attacking, Mikel Arteta doesn't quite think he's ready in that aspect to defend as well. But to be quite honest, Xhaka's defensive responsibilities this year have been taken away. I think I saw numbers like his tackles and interceptions. Yeah, he's not there anymore. And it's all about Zinchenko and Ben White as the inverted fullbacks, winning the tackles and interceptions and the number 6. So if it is the role that those three players are controlling transitions, then is it time to put in Fabio Vieira? Because Xhaka's main role right now is to get the ball in the final third. And in that aspect, Vieira is just always going to be better because he's more of a natural attacker. See, I don't want to go in on Xhaka because I love Xhaka as a player.
You're not going in on him. We're being honest. Like, it's nothing, not criticism.
So exactly. Yeah, but when I see, when I've said like in the recent weeks, maybe we should like kind of replace him for a game or two, I've got a lot of people going, oh, but you got to respect him. I respect him, but I also realise that he's not an attacker by nature. And when you're not an attacker by nature, you're not going to be as decisive in the final third. And when you got Fabio Vieira, who I think has a killer final ball, and Mikel Arteta recently said he's giving him big headaches to, I think, why not, man? And again, especially in the game against Everton. Against Everton at home, I know they've got a physical midfield, so I don't think he will. But in a game like that at home, or maybe the game after that at home, we've got Bournemouth at home, I want to see Fabio Vieira start. I think he started one league game all season, and that was against Brentford all those months ago. So
did he start against Wolves? He might have come on against.
No, he came off for Xhaka, and in that game he killed the and he opened the low block up. He opened the low block up. He made a lovely run in behind and played it to Odegaard to score. So clearly, he's a player that can impact the Premier League, and I think if Mikel says he's ready, then hopefully he is.
What do you make of potentially, I know he's exclusively a left back on paper, he runs into midfield. What do you make of potentially Zinchenko replacing Granit in that role and then maybe going with Tierney at left back if it's not going to be Fabio Vieira for reasons like you said, physicality, etc., etc. Not that Zinchenko's more physical than Fabio Vieira necessarily in terms of stature.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, obviously, we've seen Zinchenko play into midfield recently as well. So, but I think in the final third, he isn't as good. I've seen it recently. I think sometimes in the final third, he overcomplicates it. He takes a bit too long.
Be specific.
He takes too many touches in the final third. I've seen it a few times recently.
Zinchenko, right?
Yeah, Zinchenko. And I've seen it recently where I think Man City fans told me in the summer that he's a top player when he's on it, but when he's like kind of overthinking it, you can slow your team down. So he's still been amazing, by the way. Like, he's been amazing. But in the final third, I want someone that's like, click, one touch pass and sees the pass. He's an attacker. Zinchenko, even though he plays an attacker, I don't think he is as natural as Fabio Vieira. Look, we've got for me the perfect player in that system right now to play there. He's left-footed. He can play in that side like Xhaka can, and he works hard as well. I mean, remember that occasion against Aston Villa where they were counter-attacking before Arsenal scored their goals, and it was just Fabio Vieira.
An important bit of defending, just to stand up, really and truly. Not to mention the man's assist as well.
Exactly. So he showed there that, as an example, that he has a defensive ability to just to slow it down sometimes. And that's what Xhaka does. But I think Mikel loves Xhaka's character as well. And that character thing you can't really take away from Granit. So I don't expect him to be dropped against Everton. But if he was to, I think it could be a bit exciting for Fabio Vieira.
That's the thing, because I share a lot of what you're saying, but I'm kind of in two minds because, as you said, if you're not really doing your job and there's other people knocking on the door, as you said, Mikel Arteta headaches, then you want to see them given an opportunity. I am a bit worried about potentially Everton's physicality. Obviously, we don't necessarily have a physical midfield. Partey probably not starting, and I would probably start, even though I think Xhaka, if there was other players, you probably could be dropped. I probably would start Xhaka for that very reason. What do you make of Kieran Tierney then? Because do you think it's over? Because on one hand, I kind of think it is over for you. I don't think you want to sit on the bench. Zinchenko's doing his thing, but as you know, football is seasonal. This Zinchenko thing isn't necessarily going to be what ties us through to the end. We need a squad. On one hand, he's going to be playing, assuming we get there, Champions League football. Why would you want to leave? And if you want to be part of a competitive squad, there's going to be competitions. Just because you're out right now doesn't mean you'll be out forever, even though it does look like the system has kind of left Tierney.
I think he still has a part to play this season, especially in the Europa League. So I'm not going to say, Tierney's over for this season. But you can see when he plays compared to Zinchenko, there's a different profile. And we're not playing an inverted fullback anymore. Zinchenko is playing literally in midfield.
Right,
so yeah, he is playing there. So Tierney, he isn't that player by nature. That's not nothing. It's like Xhaka, for example. It's nothing against the players.
Tierney's just profiles. A traditional left back.
Profiles are different. So yeah, Tierney in certain games actually could be more useful than Zinchenko can. But I think Mikel wants to go fully inverted. So I think this summer, because KT's a player wants to start games, I think he'll want to move away and we can get a decent amount of money. And to be quite honest, as much as great as a player as he is, I do trust Arsenal in their scouting department to go and find the next left back that's probably 21, 22 to play behind Zinchenko that's happy to be on the bench. Yeah, well, it's not going to be Tavares either. But the whole point is those are two players that we can sell, get a massive amount of money for, and then go
When
and
you
invest.
say massive, though, sorry to cut you. When you say massive, and that's actually been one of our pet peeves, resale, because when you look at
Yes.
it, I think Celtic are due like 15%. We spent 25 million on him. It's rumored to go to Newcastle for 30. Yeah, I think Tierney could start at a lot of Prem teams and should be first choice. But if you're Newcastle, you surely look at his injury record to kind of knock it down. And I do want Arsenal to kind of overprice him to Newcastle because nobody's cutting us no deals. Newcastle in the next distant future are going to be competitors for everyone in the top six. Tierney's of the right age. Obviously, Newcastle isn't that far from Scotland, so he'd be closer to home. So what do you make of it? Okay, let's break it down and say Tierney's actually going. What sort of fee are you looking at or are you happy with? Not that we're transfer individuals.
I mean, yeah, I think it would be £40 million. I've seen fullbacks that are a lot worse with less experience go for. I mean, Zinchenko costs £35 million. So Tierney's he might not be the same profile as Zinchenko, but he's just as good in my opinion in terms of his profile of overlapping and playing as a natural fullback. So I think £40 million. This guy's at the peak of his powers. I think he's 25, 26.
Signed a new deal at Arsenal not too recently as well.
2021 signed a new contract until I think 2026 or 25, something like that. So he's got a long-term contract. Why would you not sell him for at least 30, 40 million pounds? And more importantly, I think it's big for Edu Gaspar because we've signed some good players and we've shown our strategy that we're not gonna overspend for certain players and that's amazing. But selling players, the only player that I think we can have sold is Joe Willock. That's about it. Yeah. But Leno went for £3 million. That was well underpaid. Like look at him now this season. He's
still got to deal with
player.
Pepe and Cedric in the summer.
Yeah. Pepe,
they don't go.
But I think with this case here, Tierney's a player that Arsenal don't need to sell. The other players Arsenal kind of had to move on. This is a player that Arsenal don't need to sell, so they got a position of power here. And when you got a position of power, you should be able to get fantastic money. And I think the signings that Arsenal have made money for over the past 5 years will be Willock. Two players that Arsenal, didn't really want anymore, but didn't need to sell either. And Tierney's another one of those. Yeah, exactly. So Tierney's another player who I expect Arsenal to get a decent amount of fee for, and Tavares as well. I think Tavares should probably get. I think Tavares could get similar, I think some European teams might like him a lot.
If they give me 20 million, I'll drive him myself.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that in a heartbeat as well.
A little flip on 8 mil, keep it moving, man. You've probably seen the reports today that Arteta was kind of annoyed with how Tavares was behaving. I think he's done well at Marseille, but when you read between the lines and you watch the games, he's still being criticised defensively. He's being praised going forward, which fair enough. Again, from one, I feel like I'm doing Jorginho a disservice. Again, in January, everyone on their nan had an opinion on the guy. My personal opinion was probably not the signing you want, but you have to give the man a chance. We know his fragilities. We know his strengths. We know what he can bring to the team. And as you kind of said, I don't blind trust people because Arteta has got it wrong. But the underlining thing is if Arteta wants him, you show me enough to say, all right, cool, you can have what you kind of want sort of thing. So I think Jorginho's been quality. You mentioned Man City. He was probably our best player against City, give or take. Definitely against Aston Villa, potentially against Leicester as well. What have you made of Jorginho's impact, man?
I love him. He's my type of midfielder. His passing range is so good. I love midfielders that can just keep it ticking and the line breaking passes. There was a one pass he played. 100%. Yeah, he's a proper regista. That whole number 6 thing is an Italian thing, isn't it? Playing as a regista, and he's come through like that. So he's as natural as it gets playing in that. And I think we've become even more dominant with Jorginho in the team compared to Partey. Partey's more physical for sure, and defensively I trust Partey more. But he's clever. And we saw it against Man City where even though he's not as fast, he's clever. He jumps in the right time. He can intercept passes. But his passing going forwards is at a different level.
Very underrated aspect in the game.
Very underrated. I think I saw a stat.
The opposition's goal in that.
I saw a stat that he's made 43 progressive passes in 3 games as an Arsenal player.
Jorginho doing Jorginho things. This is why I said people should give the man a chance. Where would you go with Everton then? Because I think we've got some good problems. I think Partey's probably not going to start, but let's just humour me and assume he's fit. If Partey's fit, Jorginho's form, what we spoke about with Granit Xhaka, someone's got to miss out. Who are you starting? Because I do think on one hand, Partey and Jorginho could be it. I would go, even if assuming Partey was fit, I think Partey and Jorginho could be a thing. I think Xhaka and Jorginho, I can't begrudge if Arteta goes with the same lineup. I don't know, man. There's some good problems there now, man. Good problems.
I don't see Mikel changing it. Mikel doesn't change teams when they win. And so when the team played against Leicester, did so well defensively and played so well as well, he's going to start Jorginho. And look, I know Everton have that physical midfield and at Goodison Park it causes issues, but Partey started that game. and it was causing him issues. So there's no guarantee that if
He was
Partey
getting ripped by
starts,
Onana,
exactly,
getting spun in left, right, and
there's no
centre,
guarantee.
really.
There's no guarantee that if he starts that game, he's gonna do an amazing job, right? This game's all about Everton are gonna sit back and we're gonna have to break them down.
It's a different game for sure.
Who do I trust more out of Partey and Jorginho to break the pass, break the lines? I think it is Jorginho. He's proven it
Consistently,
Jorginho.
Yeah, that's
Partey's got it in him. But Jorginho's actually natural at that. Like, where Partey's better defensively, Jorginho's better in terms of breaking the lines going forwards. So Mikel won't change it. I know that for a fact. I think he's going to start him. And Thomas Partey is fit. He came off against Leicester. So if he wasn't fit, he wouldn't have been on the bench or come off the thing. So he is fit, but now he's got competition. For the first time in his Arsenal career, he's got someone to compete with. And now it's up to him to go and say, listen, I need to upgrade my passing ability to compete with Jorginho. It's good to have different profiles, man. You know, both are fantastic players.
For once, man.
Both are fantastic players in their own right, but this is exactly why when Arsenal signed Jorginho, I was saying to, on my channel, I was saying, listen, I think this is a fantastic backup signing because he's a backup. And as a backup signing, there's very few players as good as Jorginho. And I think now Arsenal fans are starting to realise this is why Mikel Arteta wanted to sign him at the start, at Man City and at Arsenal as well. And, certain players need systems to thrive. Jorginho's best football at Chelsea came under Tuchel, a compact
Every
system.
footballer, man. I don't think there's a single footballer, and I think fans act like it's foreign. I think, a good manager hides the frailties within a system. Respectfully to Granit Xhaka, is you look twice the player now that you've been, as you said earlier, absolved of defensive stuff, and you're in the final third to the point where people are considering, are you a clone? We've never seen this Granit before. Yeah, as good as he is.
Certain players on our team, they aren't physical monsters. Like Zinchenko isn't, Xhaka isn't, and Jorginho isn't, but they still thrive. And you look at the game against Leicester, they couldn't break us down. Leicester had some physical runners. Like Dewsbury Hall's a good runner, yet they couldn't cope with it. So Arsenal have this system in place to maximise Jorginho's strength. And let's not forget also the game against Everton, the first game. I don't think Partey was taken off via injury. I think he was just taken off.
I think Mikel just. It's like as soon as he got skilled by Onana, it's like, nah.
Yeah, I think Mikel said, you know what? I'm not trusting your ability to break the lines. I want someone more secure on the ball, and he brought in Jorginho because Partey started the next game against Brentford. So if he was injured, why did he start the next game? So I really think Mikel rates Jorginho very highly, and I think Arsenal fans are slowly starting to realise, okay, this guy on the ball is different gravy. I'm not saying he's perfect, by the way, but there's a reason why he won the UEFA Men's Player of the Year. You don't win that and not be a good player.
You gotta be shameless, man. You gotta be shameless.
You don't do that. You do not do that and not be a top player. You don't do that. And there's no coincidence they thrived in Tuchel's Chelsea, which is a top system as well, and Mancini's Italy. So two systems that played it, and Mancini's Italy I think played a 4-3-3. So, like at Arsenal, it's the same.
And one thing I like about Jorginho as well is like when you saw like the aftermath of him leaving Chelsea, you heard Arteta speak about it. You heard the players that he was obviously going to be new teammates with. Thiago Silva spoke about how he's a leader in the dressing room and all of that sort of stuff. And obviously we're not in the dressing room, but you can see it on the pitch. Again, I think against City, he was telling Tomiyasu to go forward. Against Leicester, he was governing things. He's what I call one of Mikel Arteta's lieutenants. You've got Zinchenko out there. You've got Granit. I'd extend that to Odegaard as well. It's almost like they're part of his coaching staff on the field sort of thing. So I'm happy with Jorginho. If you can keep playing, still think we need to upgrade the midfield. But, Jorginho can play a part. And definitely where we've, again, until it's mathematically confirmed, I'm wary. But we're going to be in the Champions League. As much as we're doing this youngster thing, we need some experience. We need players that, as Edu said, can continue our momentum. And I think El Nene, when fit, in his own little role, brings that. We just alluding to Jorginho, Granit, and the rest of them. I still think we need to address our midfield long term, but so far, so good. If we move on to Trossard, I've got a couple of things to ask you in relation to Trossard, bro. The first thing, does it look like we dodged the bullet when you look at Mudryk versus Trossard? Because on one hand, I don't know, there could have been an alternative universe where Mudryk signs for us and looks lit, but you're looking mad. Trossard's looking cool. I have to wonder if Mudryk doesn't improve, why we were scouting him. But it's looking like we dodged the bullet there.
I wouldn't say dodged the bullet because, over the recent years, every player Mikel Arteta has wanted for a massive amount of money has proven to be pretty decent. I think, again, Jorginho struggled at Chelsea because of the system. So I think it's the same with Mudryk. They've got a poor system in place. They're not confident, and therefore they're not going to be as good as Arsenal are. I would say, though, the Trossard signing has worked out better because he can also play down the middle. And if we had signed Mudryk, he can play, on the left-hand side and be amazing. And I think against most game states, he'll be amazing. Whereas Trossard needs to play against a deep block. He's not as explosive as a Mudryk. Mudryk can play against a deep block, but also, take it on in the counter-attack as well. But in the front three, I think as a false nine, Trossard's amazing. And when Jesus is injured and Nketiah is not being as free-flowing, I think it's worked out better for Arsenal inadvertently. And that's what Trossard is. He's got the experience. He's thrived straight away. And there's a player that went from a Brighton system that was good to an Arsenal system that's elite. And you can see straight away then the impact he's had, and more importantly, I mean, his ball striking is different gravy. The way he banged that goal in against Leicester, it was disallowed. But I mean,
So unfortunate. So
that
unfortunate.
I knew from the moment he cut Italia was going in top bins, and we don't have those type of players, that devastating ball striking.
He's a
That goal.
very
You know
good
what?
finisher. Our young players
He's
could learn a
ruthless.
lot from him.
He's ruthless, and I think he has the most goals on his weak foot in the league as well. He opens up angles, and I really think until Jesus returns in the next month or so, Trossard needs to stay in that first team, because I want it. Also at their best, and best to watch as well as a fan, when the attack is just rotating and it's moving left, right, and centre, because the defenders don't know who to mark. Now
What
against
did you
Everton,
make of? Sorry to cut you. What did you? Because you're kind of tying into it. What did you make of Trossard and Martinelli together then, kind of? Because they were rotating, as you said.
in the first half, they tried it and it wasn't as fluid. In the second half, it came off to a T. It came off in the first minute of the second half. Trossard comes out wide, plays a nutmeg assist, and then Martinelli's in. That does not happen with Nketiah. Not because Nketiah is just a different profile. I think I saw the heat maps of Nketiah against Villa and then of Trossard against Leicester, and it's Trossard's outside the box and Nketiah's inside the box. Different type of players, and we're not making chances for a striker, but we're at our best when everyone's allowed to score. That's why we don't have an out-and-out top goal scorer. Martinelli's got 9 goals, Saka's got 9 goals. We don't have that Haaland profile. Exactly, we don't have that profile. So if you don't have that profile, and you need to replicate what you have with Jesus, which is that free-flowing rotating final front three, and we are doing that with Trossard. I was very impressed by his performance, and I think he also made, something like 4 progressive passes as well, which is, I think, the most any Arsenal player has made, a striker's made since Jesus. Listen, man, I really...
Go on.
I really think he needs to start, and not just start against Everton, but even in going into the next few games. I love his profile, man. He's a top player.
I wanted to ask you, kind of talking about that. There's obviously, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter. You've probably seen it with your brethren. A lot of people, and even Ian Wright, and I think there is some truth to it. 2 questions, really. What have you made of Martinelli's current form? And do you think Martinelli's missing Jesus? Because the Brazilian boys, they were kind of doing what you said with Trossard and Thingy, where they were rotating and things like that. What do you make of that?
I wasn't surprised to see his form drop off when he didn't have that combination play, because he needs to. It's too many games, especially the game against Everton in the first game. You could see he was isolated. He was on his own. He kept going into the wide areas and just dribbling on his own because there was no one to play with. With Trossard, he's a natural playmaker as well. They have that natural combination play. They're both on the same wavelength. When different ballers, you see 2 different ballers on the same pitch, you can see they understand each other.
They're just stuff here that doesn't need to be said.
They're a second quicker. They're a bit more decisive. They don't wait too much time. I think Eddie sometimes, with all due respect, he's a bit tunnel visioned, only towards the goal. So there was an example where Jorginho plays him in against Man City. If he looks up, he's got Martinelli in to tap it in.
Early, I know exactly the